We often think about impact, about strategy, in a very linear way.
Hmm.
You get the team, you define the goals, you push forward, and the results should just follow.
In a nice straight line.
Exactly. But if you've ever worked on a big project, a mission, you know you eventually hit that wall, progress just stalls.
And those partnerships you worked so hard to build, they stay polite, but, they're superficial.
And worse, you look around and see everyone is duplicating effort, just wasting so much energy and so many resources.
That stalling point is so critical, it forces a question. What if the problem isn't your team or your dedication? What if the fundamental blueprint is just wrong?
And that's what we're getting into today. Our sources point to this ancient, flawless system, one that was working long before we ever thought up strategic plans or org charts.
We're diving deep into the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Spirit, but not as, some abstract doctrine.
Right. We're looking at it as the original ecosystem, the ultimate functional blueprint for what the sources call interdependent mission, for leadership that actually works.
Our mission here is to understand how this eternal dance of the triune God, a system that thrives on mutuality, balance, and relational synergy, can be a radical new lens for you.
A lens to transform all those fragmented, isolated efforts
Yeah.
into a system of multiplying influence.
Because the sources are pretty blunt. The challenge today isn't a lack of people or money, it's the way we even think about collaboration.
We're trying to solve these huge, complex problems with strategies that are built on isolation, when the model we should be looking at is one of, well, perfect divine interdependence.
So let's unpack that divine architecture. I think we have to start with the failure point. Why are partnerships superficial? Why do we keep seeing this isolation?
Silos.
Exactly. The sources call it silo thinking. It's where leaders, often without realizing it, start prioritizing their own programmatic success over collaborative impact.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, fragmentation is the natural result when your first loyalty is to your own brand instead of the collective mission. You're just protecting your turf.
And if that's the disease, then the theological model for interdependence is the cure. And it has a name, perichoresis.
Okay, that sounds like a word straight out of a textbook. Break it down for us. What is the essence of perichoresis?
It comes from Greek, peri, which means around, and chorein, which means to contain or to make room.
To make room, I like that.
Right. Put them together, and perichoresis describes this mutual indwelling, this dynamic reciprocity and interpenetrating love between the Father, Son, and Spirit. It's perfect relational harmony.
So each person fully inhabits the others, but they don't get absorbed. They keep their own identity.
That's the crucial part, relationship without absorption. It's why the analogy the sources use is a threefold dance.
A dance, okay.
Yeah.
So each dancer is moving freely, but they're also responding intuitively to the others.
Exactly. And that movement, it generates this harmony, this energy, this collective broody that could never exist if they were just dancing alone. They're distinct, but their movement is completely intertwined.
Okay, but I have to ask the practical question here. If we bring this down to earth, how do we stop the biggest, most resourced dancer from just taking over the whole floor?
That's a great question.
I mean, if it's all about mutual indwelling, how does the smaller nonprofit stop the giant one from basically absorbing its identity or just taking its resources?
And that's where the divine nature of the blueprint is so important. The sources stress that God exists as this perfectly balanced, non-competitive ecosystem.
So there's no competition for glory.
None, only shared purpose. So any mission we undertake is an invitation into a participatory imitation of that pattern. Mission isn't a solo act. It only thrives in that perfect interdependent balance.
Okay, so let's move from the theory to the function. If the Trinity is the blueprint, there have to be clear roles, a functional model for leadership. How does it break down?
It breaks down into three very clear functions. First, you have the Father as the source and visionary.
The originator.
The originator, yes. The Father initiates, directs, and sustains the vision. He is the why behind it all. You see it in John 3.16, the Father sends the Son. He establishes the whole mission out of this intentional, directed love.
And in our terms, that mirrors, vision casting, strategic foresight, and nurturing purpose.
Right.
But the sources make a key distinction. The Father's role is to clarify the purpose and then entrust others. He doesn't micromanage the execution.
That requires immense security in a leader, doesn't it? To let the vision be realized through others. Most organizations fail right there, confusing the visionary with the executor.
Precisely. Which brings us to role number 2.
The Son as the embodiment and connector. The Father sets the course and the Son executes. He embodies the vision, makes it tangible. He's the living bridge between the divine purpose and, well, our messy reality.
He models that incarnational presence, that service and empathy. As John 20:22:1 says, "As the Father has sent me, I am sending you."
Which means mission can never stay abstract. It can't just be a memo or a Zoom call.
No, it demands presence. It demands relational engagement over just, outputs and quarterly reports. You see this in history, right?
Yeah.
I think of the Moravian missionaries in the 18th century.
Tell us.
They didn't just send pamphlets. They went and lived in the communities they were serving, sometimes for decades. They were the tangible embodiment of the mission. They made the purpose concrete.
And that tangible presence is then sustained by the third role, the Spirit, the empowerer and sustainer.
Right.
The Spirit brings the motion, the energy, the continuity to the whole ecosystem. He's the one who equips people, who ensures the mission has resilience and growth. That's the power we see in Acts 1.8, just pushing everything forward.
So the Spirit is like the connective tissue of the operation.
I love that phrase. Yes.
He fosters the unity, the interdependence. He guides the collective action. It's the difference between a system built on bylaws and one that's built on, on life.
And the goal isn't a rigid, perfect structure. It's a living system where everything flows from this shared vitality.
Okay, so if this blueprint is so perfect, why is fragmentation still the default for so many?
Well, sources are very clear. The biggest barrier isn't theological complexity. It's just good old-fashioned human ego.
It always comes back to ego.
Siloed thinking is fueled by what the authors call the denominational ego.
That's a great term, the denominational ego,
Yeah.
that subtle force that recenters everything around us, our brand, our way of doing things.
And you can predict the consequences. It leads to this quiet competition for resources, these territorial battles, and this fear that if we collaborate, we'll somehow dilute our identity.
So we get parallel efforts instead of shared labor.
Exactly. And when leaders are focused on protecting their own institution, they are fundamentally working against the model of perichoresis.
It makes you ask a really uncomfortable question, doesn't it? When we see those walls go up, what are we actually protecting? The mission or just our own institutional survival?
Because the two are often at war. But the New Testament gives us a perfect countermodel to all that ego. The church at Antioch, in Acts 11 through 13. It's a case study of perichoresis in action. It was a diverse global city, and the church there reflected that. Jewish and Gentile believers came together. It was a functioning relational ecosystem from day one.
And the sources highlight that radical diversity.
Wow.
I mean, the leadership team included Lucius from North Africa, Simeon called Niger, Saul of Tarsus, a Roman citizen.
An incredible mix.
And what was critical is they operated with a shared vision over personal platforms. They functioned like a living network, not a top-down corporation.
And here's the ultimate test of that non-ego structure. What did they do with their best leaders, Barnabas and Saul?
They sent them away.
They sent them away. They didn't cling to their highest performing assets to boost their own local metrics. They let them go. That one act just proves the source's principle. Ego clings, the kingdom sends.
So Antioch succeeded because it put relational trust and mission way ahead of institutional control. It proved that diversity actually strengthens resilience when everyone is aligned to the same purpose.
So for you, the learner, the question is now practical. How do you take this divine architecture and actually implement it?
Right. How do we move from theory to practice?
The sources offer a couple specific actionable exercises. The first tool is called the ecosystem map. It's designed to break that silo thinking.
An ecosystem map. Okay.
The process is simple. You start by intentionally identifying 5 organizations or leaders outside your usual circles.
So not your usual partners.
No, people you might cooperate with, but you aren't truly interdependent with. Think other denominations, community NGOs, people from totally different backgrounds. You have to challenge that silo instinct.
And once you've identified them, you map their complementary strengths. What do they have that you don't? And then you map the relational gaps.
Where's the communication missing? Where are resources being duplicated? And then comes the hard part. You have to design reciprocal relational flows.
Reciprocal. That's
Yeah.
the key word, isn't it?
It's everything. The sources stress these flows cannot be extractive. An extractive flow is when one partner only shows up to get grant money or borrow your expertise, but gives nothing back.
A transaction.
Exactly. A reciprocal flow might be, we'll share our administrative backbone, and in return, you share your specialized field data. It's a mutual investment.
That jump from transactional cooperation to true reciprocal flow, That feels like the biggest leap this blueprint demands.
It is. Which brings us to the second tool, sustaining the ecosystem. Because interdependence is a living relationship. It needs intentional, spirit-led rhythms to stay healthy.
It's not just about quarterly meetings.
Not at all. It's about shared spiritual practice. Things like prayer as shared breath, where you're not just praying for your own institution, you are genuinely holding the collective mission together.
And what else?
Discernment as communal listening. So you're not just reviewing past metrics, you're asking together, what is the Spirit saying to us right now? It shifts the focus to the future.
And the sources have one final exercise, a silo scan.
Yes. This is about making it concrete. You identify 3 specific areas where your territorialism or your anxiety is limiting collaboration with those partners you mapped.
And then?
You commit to a concrete, irreversible action to remove that barrier. Maybe you merge a budget line, share a facility, co-brand a major project. You force the move beyond hesitant cooperation to transformational interdependence.
So to summarize this whole deep dive,
Right.
the Trinity isn't just a doctrine. It's the eternal blueprint for a mission that is dynamic, interdependent, and truly transformative. It's an invitation.
Exactly. When a community embodies the Father's initiative, the Son's relational connection, and the Spirit's empowerment, it stops being a collection of projects. It starts to function as a living system, reflecting the very life of God.
So the challenge for every one of us, for every organization, is whether we will align our strategies with this eternal blueprint or just continue the same fragmented, exhausting efforts.
It calls for a lot of humility, a lot of courage, and a total dependence on the Spirit to guide that communal dance. And the final question we want to leave you with is this.
What's the final thought?
What new levels of influence, innovation, and resilient unity could be unlocked in your world simply by embracing a relational ecosystem designed by God Himself?